Hey, welcome back to Esther's Breeze. I want to thank you all so very much for all your support and love. A special thank you to Jenny DeHame from Pax Management, to Fernando Renzo, my partner in crime, and to the man, the legend, Mr. Robert D'Alessio. Let's bring him up.
Hey, Esther, such a pleasure. Such a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me on.
Of course, of course. And I know you have something very special to announce.
Indeed, yes, I do have something special to announce. Folks, as you all know, Esther's broadcasting on her personal Facebook page. She's also broadcasting on her YouTube channel called Esther's Breeze. And now, starting tonight, this is the premiere, Esther is now available on the Bobby Short Shorts YouTube channel.
Yay! So happy to be part of the family. And in addition, in about 24 hours, I will also be available on audio on Spotify. So lots of great things are happening, and I'm so excited.
Good for you, Esther. We're all so proud of you. You're doing a great job. You have some great guests. And folks, stay tuned for an absolutely amazing show. Esther's guest is phenomenal. You're going to absolutely love her. Don't forget, as we go through the broadcast, don't be shy. Go ahead and ask your questions. Our guest is going to be more than obliged to answer all of your questions. Esther, I have a job to do. I'm going to go backstage. So, it's all yours, Esther. Take her away. Have a good evening.
You too. So in the past year, I must have bought about 10 or 12 books from Amazon, all with good intention. I'd pick them up, I'd start reading them, and I just couldn't focus. But there was one book that I just couldn't put down. The Good Stripper by Marci Warhaft, described as a soccer mom's memoir of lies, loss, and lap dances. Now, this isn't as tantalizing and only about sexual adventures as you may imagine. There's also a lot of trauma, a lot of loss, a lot of love, and then a lot of loss again. And underlying all this was a very demanding eating disorder. Marci recently put up a couple of little videos on TikTok. I'm going to show them to you.
Do you know how I know that our society has a messed up concept of fitness? Because when I didn't eat, didn't sleep, and lost so much weight that my body stopped working properly, they called me fit. When I got healthy, started eating, exercising, and sleeping regularly, they told me I was too fat to be talking about fitness. That's fucked up. How I know that our society has a messed up concept of fitness, part 2. When I was 17, I was fit, healthy, and spent the summer teaching dance. I was also coping with the death of my brother from just a few months earlier. During a routine physical, my doctor said that I wasn't medically overweight, but society was very thin, and if I wanted to fit into society and look good in a bathing suit, I'd have to lose 10 pounds. That's fucked up. How I know that our society's messed up concept of fitness is so damaging. Part 3. This one's a doozy. When I was 7, I believed I could be anything. By 17, I believed the only thing worth being was skinny. With zero self-esteem, I was completely unprepared for the traumas that life was going to throw at me. And it broke me. To cope, I slipped into a secret double life. By day, I was Marci, housewife and soccer mom. Then at night, while everyone slept, I was Cassidy, the dancer, who allowed myself to be sexualized and objectified in a misguided search for validation and love. And it nearly killed me. Now I teach kids how to live with confidence in an image-obsessed society. And I share my story with brutal honesty in this book. We live in a society that glorifies looking fit instead of being fit and confuses physical appearance with physical fitness. And that's fucked up because we know self-worth shouldn't be measured in pounds.
Wow, that's a lot. Let's bring her up. Marci Warhaft. Hey.
Hey.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. So you and I were actually connected prior to this book coming out. I had been following you on Facebook. I had been following you on Instagram. And I was always impressed by how full of life you were and how positive and sassy. And then you announced this book. And it just like threw me for a loop. What do you mean? Like this incredibly positive individual had this whole past, and she was bringing it all out for us to read about. So what made you write the book, and why do it now?
It's a tough question. I think why did I write it? I've said before that people have, we talk about a bucket list, and people have all these things they want to travel to here or there or do all these things. And for me, I had one thing on my bucket list, and that was to write my story. I didn't think I ever could for so many reasons, but I really wanted to. And then it just came to a point, maybe it was that I was going to be turning 50, maybe, I don't know. I think I had enough of feeling like I was hiding from my past and running from my past. And I needed to just get my story out. I've fallen madly in love with the truth. And I hate coming across as inauthentic or not genuine. And I couldn't die with my story in my bones. I just needed to get it out. And I had friends over the years who felt that my story could help other people. I wasn't sure about that. I didn't know how people would react to it or to me after hearing it. But I needed to tell it. I needed to tell it because it was holding me prisoner in a way. And I needed to get it out. I think also, it's like, you said you knew me from social media and didn't know my story. I get that a lot. And I actually just had somebody today message me and say, I just read your book and I never would have guessed, like, you dance with so much joy. How are you still okay? And I think that's really important, because I wanted people to see that you can go through really, really tough stuff, and think that maybe you can't get through another day, but then not only get through another day, but really enjoy it and find your happiness again. And I think that's important, because I think we doubt ourselves, but when we see somebody else do it, it gives us hope.
I love that. Did you expect, or did you get any backlash for the book?
I expected backlash for sure. I think the week before it came out is when I went onto social media and said, I did a thing and posted the book and said, here it is. And I braced myself for what was going to happen. I was ready. I was ready as you can be. My thought was, I've been through a lot and I've been hurt a lot, and that didn't break me. So I was prepared for if somebody judged me, if somebody didn't like me, if I lost people in my life, I could handle it because I've been through so much worse. And again, it's my truth, and I'm not going to be afraid of my truth. I say all the time that if my life choices make you uncomfortable, better you're uncomfortable with my life than I'm uncomfortable with my life. You'll survive. So, but I was prepared for some. I haven't really gotten it. I think the big shocker is I did get a ton of people messaging me, people that I went to school with when I was a kid, people I went to camp with when I was 8 years old, saying, I wish I knew. I think everyone wanted to hug me. That's what I kind of got. Like, everyone just wanted to hug me. But then I also got a lot of people saying, wow, I don't feel alone anymore. So I think what I expected people to turn away from me for is actually what brought people closer to me. It was a lesson I learned, was that all the things that we think are so shameful about ourselves and we think that people are going to judge us for, people can relate to it more than we expect. And so that's what I hear a lot is, I don't feel so alone. I don't feel so alone. Because even though there are lots of things in my life that I talk about in the book that are unique to me, there are a lot of things that people, maybe they're things that people were curious about or they've heard about. And it was kind of voyeuristic, that they can learn about things through, in a safe place, reading my book through me. There are also a lot of things that people can absolutely relate to. And so even things that I thought I was alone with, people were saying, no, I've been there. And I had somebody say, thank you for putting to words what I went through, but could never express properly. So I think I even learned that we're so much more connected when we share our truth, even if it's dark and messy and dirty. It connects us rather than separates us.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I myself even related to certain aspects of the book, which I contacted you about at the time. And I was curious. I mean, I know you have two kids. I know they're all grown up. I know one is 21 and the other one's 27. Is that correct? Or
No,
20,
no, they're not 19 and 22. It's not
Oh my
Russian.
goodness, I'm so sorry. But so what was their reaction? And did you present it to them beforehand? And once they found out, how did they react?
Well, I was new to this experience also. I probably should have told them about it sooner than than I did. That was one thing that some of my close friends were worried about, because they kept saying, "What about your kids? What about your kids? What are your kids going to think?" But I've got pretty incredible kids, and I was nervous. They knew about some of my losses. They knew about certain things. They didn't know about the dancing. They didn't know about other things in my life. But I told them, and they were pretty unfazed, actually. Their reaction was kind of, one of them said, "How long ago was this? Why would I have a problem with," like, they weren't bothered, because also I was there. It wasn't like I disappeared from their lives and did crazy stuff. I just didn't sleep, so that I was doing crazy stuff and being a parent all the time. So I was there. And one of my sons said to me, because I kept saying, "I've made mistakes and there are things I regret, but I just wanted you to be happy and have a good life." And he said, "Okay, you keep saying you made mistakes, but you wanted us to be happy and have a good life. We are happy. We are having a good life. So maybe they weren't mistakes." So they were a lot kinder on me than even I was for such a long time. So what they said was, "We're in your corner." They said, "We have your back." And that's all I could have asked for. So they're pretty amazing.
Yeah, they certainly sound like they're amazing. So your husband, he was on board with the stripping, is that correct? And all your sexual adventures?
Well, so I don't want to talk about him too much, but I will say that my ex-husband, just to clarify, yeah, there's nothing. I If he were to read the book, I don't know if he has. There's nothing surprising. There should be nothing surprising in there. There's nothing that he's finding out for the first time. I didn't do anything. There was no cheating. There was no, maybe details weren't open, but yes, everything. He was absolutely 100% aware of everything that was going on, and was part of it. So there was no, we had a dysfunctional marriage. And I don't think either of us recognized that at the time, even. But yeah, we weren't living separate lives. We were living our marriage, which was just in a really messed up place. We had been through a lot. Like, we went to see a therapist for about a minute, and what he said was that we went through about 40 years worth of marriage in 22 years. We went through a lot together, and we handled some of it amazingly well, and then some of it not very well. And that's what happens when you're different.
Yeah.
We're just different people.
You went through a lot in your life. Your parents got divorced when you were 10. You lost your brother when he was 21. You were 5 years younger. Is that correct? Yeah. And then once you were married, you had some miscarriages. You had some health issues. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of trauma in that. And within all that, there was also this eating disorder that you were battling that I don't think anybody realized. And when do you think that all came about? When did that need to control?
Well, sorry. I mean, everyone kind of knew. That started. So I always say that my brother's death when I was 17 gave birth to my eating disorder, because eating disorders are mostly about control. It's not a vanity thing. It was a control issue. And so at 17 years old, so my parents had divorced when I was 10, and my father was out of the picture from then. He sort of abandoned us, and my brother was the man of the house, let's say. And I adored him. He could do no wrong in my eyes. And when I was 17, he was sick, and he died when he was 21. And at that moment, the second before I heard that he died was the last time I ever felt truly safe and protected in the world. To me, he was strong and healthy and just amazing. And to see someone at 21 years old like that die, everything around me didn't make sense anymore. So I felt very unsafe and very unprotected. On top of that, at 17, you feel invincible, like you can do anything. And I felt the opposite. And I also felt like, I remember when he was in the hospital and people were bringing food, because that's what people do. And I remember thinking, I'm not going to eat. And it wasn't a weight thing. It was because I couldn't do anything to help him. Like, I felt so helpless. What's the one thing I can control? What's the only thing that you have complete control over is yourself, is your body. So by not eating, it sort of made me feel like I was doing something, even as illogical as that sounds. And then when he died, I felt that he was a much better person than me. I felt that the world needed him more than it needed me. I felt that he deserved to be here more than I did. And I felt like if I was going to be here instead of him, I couldn't just be average. I couldn't just be okay. I had to be spectacular, and I didn't feel spectacular. So I thought, if I can't be super funny or super smart or super interesting, well, maybe I could try to be pretty. And to my 17-year-old brain, that meant skinny. And so that became my focus, was I'm going to try to be as skinny as possible. And so when you have very little self-esteem, and I had an incredible mother who really built me up all the time, but still I felt like I wasn't worthy of my life. And so when you go through life feeling like you're not enough, it really sets you up for danger, because you become very easily manipulated. You become very, the traumas that hit you, you're not prepared to handle. So I was not anywhere near prepared to handle the traumas that life was going to throw at me.
So there's definitely some survivor guilt involved here. And in addition, you had these incredibly toxic comments from your physician. Like, tell me about that. So horrible.
Yeah, I was, again, so my brother died, it was the end of May, and I had just turned 17, and I was always fit, I was always healthy, and I was actually, on that summer, I taught dance at a camp. So I was active all summer, and right before I went away to teach, I saw myself becoming obsessed with my weight. I saw myself watching a little too much what I was eating. I saw myself weighing myself too much. And I was kind of impressed with myself. Looking back, that at 17, I caught that, because people were talking about body image stuff back in the 80s, the way that they are now. And I went away to camp, and I came back, and I remember I went for a checkup, and my doctor wanted to weigh me. And I said to him, you know what? Don't tell me what I weigh, and I told him I was becoming obsessed with it. And I'm afraid if I hear a number, it'll throw me off. So don't tell me the number. And again, I was always fit, always healthy, never had a weight problem. No, my family had a weight problem. It just wasn't an issue. So I got on the scale, and he said, oh, I'm absolutely going to tell you what you weigh. And he told me that medically speaking, I wasn't overweight, but society was very thin. And if I wanted to fit into society, I had to lose 10 pounds. He said if he were me, he wouldn't be seen in a bathing suit. He kept pointing at my stomach saying, what is that? Look at that. And he just berated me. And then he had me write everything down that I ate every week and bring it into him. And he would go over everything I ate and then yell at me if I ate something that he didn't approve of. And I did that. And then I ended up losing the 10 pounds, and then losing another 10 pounds, and then losing another 10 pounds. And I remember him saying, okay, I want to weigh you again because you're looking pretty thin. And then he said, okay, you can stop now. And I remember thinking, no friggin' way. Like, I'll show you. And that was, I don't blame him for the eating disorder, but he certainly didn't help.
No, that's
It was
incredible.
negligent. It was negligent.
Yeah,
1,000%.
Yeah, that's so odd. So you get married, you have miscarriages, you have children, you have illnesses that you had to deal with. At what moment was it an aha moment? Like, how did the turning into Cassidy happen? Like, what was?
Okay, well, it wasn't an aha moment. It wasn't. It was. So yeah, it was a lot. It was losing my brother, and then finding out my stepfather was a bank robber and him being arrested, and then it was. My mother was diagnosed with cancer right after that, but she was doing okay. And then I moved and I got married, and yeah, we moved to the other part of the country, and then I had 2 miscarriages, and then got pregnant again. And while I was pregnant, My mom died, and I was completely unprepared for that. And then the son that I was pregnant with, I almost lost him 4 weeks before my due date. We were an hour away from losing him. So it was just trauma. And then I got pregnant again. And this time, everything was going great. And then I got super sick and was in the hospital for 2 months in ICU on a ventilator for 2.5 weeks with kidney failure and respiratory failure. And given a 25% chance of surviving at one point. And then I survived, but we lost baby. And then I had to learn how to walk again and breathe on my own and talk. And it was tough. At that point, I had been through so much emotionally, psychologically, and physically. And I didn't have anyone around me. My father was out of the picture. My mom died. My brother died. I have a sister who now I'm incredibly close with, but at the time we were estranged, so we weren't close. So I just had me and my partner. And then we moved back east and I got pregnant again. And this time everything went great and I had my second miracle baby. But something, I knew something wasn't right with me. And what I learned after somebody explained to me was it was a type of traumatic overload. So I had gone through so much in such a short period of time because a lot of these traumas were fast. I had somebody on Facebook recently ask, if you could go back in time and pick 5 years of your life that you would do again, which would it be? And I thought about it and I thought, I would have to pick which trauma I would want to go through again because I haven't had 5 years in a row without a trauma, at least one. Most of the time it was more than one, but I have not gone 5 years without at least one major trauma. It's been when I couldn't catch my breath, and that's too much for someone to take without a support system around them. And so I felt something was not right. It wasn't a postpartum thing. I almost felt superhuman, but I knew something wasn't okay. And I spoke to my doctor back west, and he said, no, it's just pregnancy and you'll be fine. And something was wrong. And I think what happened was I had never dealt with the eating disorder. So I was still dealing with negative body image and self-esteem, plus the trauma. At this point, my marriage had taken a turn, and I believe that my partner felt that it would be, he would try to not take advantage, not consciously take advantage, but thought it would be a good time to bring up certain things in my life that made me feel pretty objectified. And I stopped feeling loved. And I think what happened was I felt like if I couldn't be loved, at least I could be desired. And so that was when I turned. I talk about in the book how my partner wanted me to be with other people, and I didn't want to. And then I went through this kind of change with myself and thought, okay, you know what? If I'm not going to be loved and people want me physically, then that's what I will focus on. And that's where I will look for my validation and my love. But it wasn't a conscious thing. It wasn't like I'm going to create this other person. It was just, I just became this other person where, I mean, I say that, but at the same time, it was all me. But I felt that I had two roles in this world, and it was to be the best mother that I could be. And it was so important to me that I do that. I had lost my mother young. I had almost died when I was 29. I didn't know how much time I had left on this planet. I wanted every memory of my kids to be spectacular. So I was really focused on them. But then I also had this other part of me that was looking, I just needed to be loved and desired and wanted in some way. And so I started acting out sexually and lived this double life of not sleeping and not eating and just be going around the clock, going from Marci, the soccer mom, to Cassidy, the dancer / city vixen. And it was tough. I don't know how I did it because I didn't sleep and I didn't eat and I was running on fumes, but I was fueled by trauma. It's pretty amazing what it can do.
And you would just get on stage from the very, very beginning and be totally comfortable and at home. And you talk about that in the book as well. You just like got on there. And yes,
Yeah,
I'm
it was weird. It was weird. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, that was, I've said before, the dancing part was easy. Like I've always loved dancing. And so getting up there and dancing was easy. Now, look, without the trauma, would I have done it naked for money? No. But that part of it was in a weird way, it was me again controlling, right? It was me, instead of with food, it was with sex. So it was me controlling my body, owning my body. And so it almost felt empowering. What I didn't like was getting off stage and having to try and sell myself, having to try and I wasn't good at that whole sitting down with people and trying to get them to buy lap dances. I'm not a fan of that at all. I found that pretty demoralizing.
right.
But the dancing part I liked.
Yeah, that's something that you definitely love. Now, do you think there's sort of an intertwining aspect here between the eating disorder and becoming Cassidy? And do you think that one fueled the other?
I couldn't have done the dancing without the eating disorder, because I was afraid, part of me was afraid, and it wasn't, look, the dancing part I did for a few months. It wasn't forever. I always say I went rogue. I kind of then was sharing myself with people that I shouldn't have been and wished that I hadn't. And that was when it got dark. And that was the part that was really bad. Not so much the dancing. It was the stuff that sort of went on after that. But I knew they kept each other going. Like I knew that if I stopped dancing and stopped showing myself and giving myself to people, that I'd start eating again. And I didn't want to start eating again, because if you know people are gonna see you naked, then it keeps you from overeating, let's say. That's where my headspace was. So it was like, I better not stop this, because then I'll start eating again. So they were fueling each other. But it's also, again, it's control. So on one hand, I think sex and food are very connected, because with the eating disorder, I was controlling my body through food and through exercise. But then sex, that was my body. And that was the commodity I felt that I had. And so even though I was really out of control, it was a false sense of control. I felt like I had a little bit of control when I was putting my body out there. Instead of my partner, I felt that my partner was trying to control me sexually. I was like, wait, the rebellious part of me was like, you can't control me, I'll show you. And then I was giving myself, again, thinking I was in control when I was losing control.
So how did you go from there to becoming an advocate for body positivity? You're the founder of Fit versus Fiction. Now, how did that all come about?
So I had done this for a few years, this life, and sort of had an epiphany one day when I realized that my actions weren't just hurting me, because I knew, I felt terrible, and I was running myself into the ground, and I felt like a horrible person. But I also felt like I deserved anything bad coming at me. Like I felt like I deserved bad things. And I kept doing bad things because I was proving to myself how bad a person I was, which is crazy. But one day I kind of realized that my actions were also hurting other people, that there were other people, innocent people, that were being hurt by my actions. And that I couldn't handle. That was too much for me. And so I had to put an end to it. And I did. I stopped the craziness. I went into an eating disorder treatment program. I had been on medication from my surgeries. I got off that, and I completely changed my life. And I was sleeping properly and eating properly. And I felt much more connected with myself. I mean, while I was going through all this, it's almost like what you hear about or what you see in movies, where there were times when I felt like I was watching myself do these things, that I was so detached from myself. I actually would look in the mirror sometimes and not recognize myself. I remember once saying out loud to my reflection, "Who are you?" Like I literally could not recognize myself. So once I started getting healthy again, I felt like I had sort of come back into my body and felt connected again. And then when I went through the eating disorder program and I was healthy and I was able to see things differently, I saw what was being taught to my kids in school. They were quite young at the time. I did not like the messages that they were getting at school. I found that everything about health was related to weight, and it wasn't about gaining health, it was about losing weight. And I know that there were kids that were struggling with self-esteem and body image in elementary school, and I felt the need to do something about it. I felt the need to try to stop other people from going through what I went through. I mean, I battled my issue for over 20 years. And I went into my kid's school one day and I said to the principal, I don't like the messages and I'd like to give a different message. And he was like, okay, come in on Friday. And I was like, huh? Like I had nothing prepared. But I went in and I spoke to the kids and they took to it. And I found that they didn't just want to hear about it. They wanted to share their feelings. They had a lot of opinions. And I never planned it on it being a program. It just became a word of mouth thing. One kid would tell their sibling, and then the sibling would tell their school, and then their teacher, and it just started getting invited into schools. And then I started with fourth graders and was asked to speak with first graders because it's such an issue. And I don't. But so my program is, it's not. I don't talk at kids. I talk with kids. It's an interactive program. I use videos and pictures and stories, and I get their opinions, and we play games. But I think it's really important, especially now, and especially with social media, that we give the kids the tools that they need to empower them to be able to battle the negative messages that we get all the time. And that was my goal. And it was important. And then I ended up writing a book for parents because I wanted to give parents the book that I wish my mother had, because there's nothing worse than being a parent and seeing your kid in pain and feeling powerless. And I didn't want parents to feel powerless. And so I wrote the book, the Body Image Survival Guide for Parents, because I wanted them to have tips and tools and games and exercises that they can do and quick answers to the questions that the kids ask, so they don't feel powerless. And that's how that came about.
As a matter of fact, and I was telling you this the other day, I found Marci in a room on Clubhouse where there was actually, I think it was somebody from The Shield. He could have been the showrunner or director.
Writer, yeah. And The Walking Dead, yeah.
Yeah, oh, is that it? Okay. And you went on stage and you asked the question, like, how do you feel about the fact that you're hiring 25-year-olds to play teenagers, and that kids at home are looking at these actors who are completely developed or may have six packs, or the women are fully developed, and they can't relate to that type of body because they're not of the same age.
No, we're completely, it's both ways, because what I said was, yeah, and I talk about this in my workshops. It's so crazy the way that we are kind of brainwashed into feeling crappy about ourselves, because and I use the example because literally there was an actor on the new Beverly Hills 90210 who was playing an 18-year-old, and he got the role when he was 31. So he was in his 30s playing a teenager, and you have kids who are teenagers comparing themselves to this guy who's, I mean, they can never get his physique and they feel inferior. But at the same time, you have actors or actresses who are in their 30s playing the parents of these kids. So you've got somebody who's 30 playing someone 18, and then you've got somebody 35 playing somebody 45 or 50. And so we don't know. So the kids feel like they look too young, and then the adults feel like they look too old, because we don't know what somebody really looks like. We don't know what a real teenager looks like, and we don't know what a real woman over 50 looks like, because we're always played by other people. So it's knowledge is power, as they say. So it's important to know, look, it's all fantasy, but it's important to know that it's fantasy, because we get so caught up in it that we start measuring our self-worth, comparing it to other people, and it just doesn't make sense.
No, it's time that Hollywood actually came to terms and start showing real people what we really look like. What does a woman over 50 look like? What does a woman over 30? What does a teenager really look like?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
no, exactly. Yeah.
It's time that they came to terms with that. You also did the talk show circuit quite a bit. I have a clip here, and I'm just going to put it on for everyone to see.
We see one type of fitness, one type of beauty glorified all the time. We assume that the skinniest woman in the room is always the fittest and the most muscular guy is always the strongest. And that's not always the case. Really, the truth is the healthiest bodies are the ones that work well. We have to focus more on how our bodies work than how they look. You can be somewhere in the middle where you can live with balance and moderation and sometimes eat more and sometimes eat less and go to the gym when you can, or not go to the gym at all but be active and feel good about that. And then you're...
That's great. So when was that?
That was several years ago, and that was on Fox News in New York.
Right.
Yeah, that was an experience. That was an experience because I should have known. What had happened was this woman had posted this thing. It's a long story, so I'll make it very short. But this woman who was a fitness person, but she projected herself as just a mom with 3 kids under like 5 or something like that. And she posted a picture and she was all cut and lean. And she said with her little kids, and her message was to women, what's your excuse? Meaning, I've got these 3 little kids, I'm in great shape. What's your excuse for not? And some people found it inspiring. A lot of people found it really insulting. Now, for me, as somebody who had been, she called herself Fit Mom. And as somebody who was a fit mom, right? I was bodybuilding. I had the perfect physique, but it almost killed me. It's so unbelievably unhealthy. I wrote an article for the Huffington Post that was saying why I'm not that anymore, and why it's dangerous, and why we shouldn't shame people, and why we shouldn't make people feel guilty if they're not tiny and built and going to the gym every day while they're raising kids. And Fox News had seen that, and they invited me to New York. Geraldo Rivera had a show, and they invited me to explain that, to explain my opinion on fit bodies coming in all shapes and sizes. And the problem was, I got there, and maybe 2 minutes, no, not even a minute before we went to air, he was sitting right next to me, Geraldo Rivera, and he said, by the way, Maria, Fit Mom, is going to be joining us via satellite. And so I didn't know, they didn't tell me that it was actually going to be a debate between she and I. And what they wanted was a cat fight, because he'd whisper in my ear, cut her off, it's okay to cut her off. And they wanted us to fight. And that's not what I was there for. And it was actually taped. And so when I watched it that night, they'd edited it. So I looked pretty aggressive. I'm like, I'm Canadian, I'm not supposed to look aggressive. But it was an interesting experience. But I think I still got my point across, I guess.
Oh my God, absolutely. So these days there's a lot of obsession with not only controlling what you eat and your weight, but there's also this issue of clean eating. And there's actually a term for that. And you told me about it the other day, and I had no idea it existed. Well, why don't you tell us a bit about that and how you feel about it?
So I was a fitness instructor for years, and there's some great aspects of the fitness industry. I do have a beef with it. I think that it's still very image-based. I think we confuse physical appearance with physical fitness. It still is about how we look. I think we expect people who are fit to look a certain way. And I think that we criticize people who don't look the way that we think, or we judge people who don't look the way we think fit looks. And I think that's a big mistake. I say all the time that the skinniest person in the room isn't always the fittest, and the one with the biggest muscles isn't always the strongest, because that's the case. And I think, so the term that you're talking about is called orthorexia, and it's when you're obsessed with clean eating. And I hate the term, personally, can't stand the term clean eating. Clean eating is if your food falls on the floor and you wash it, it's clean. That's clean food. There's no magic food, just like there's no horrible food. We have to stop demonizing and glorifying foods. It's about balance and moderation. And I think you can become upset anytime you have to overthink food. Anytime you're worried, like, wait, did I have enough? Did I have too many carbs? Did I have enough vegetables? Did I have enough of this vitamin? Did I have enough of this supplement? Anytime there's too much thinking going on with it, it's not healthy. And that's disordered eating. So if you have to eat the same foods all the time because they feel safe, a lot of it centers around safe foods. Like, people feel safe with certain fruits and vegetables. They feel safe around certain proteins. They feel unsafe around a food if it has an additive or if it has sugar. And that's unsafe. So any time anything becomes an obsession with food, that's unhealthy. So, for example, for me, somebody who comes from a big, I would go back and forth. I would either overeat or undereat. But when I went into my recovery program, when I had been restricting, I had to eat. Part of my recovery program was I had to eat junk food every single day. I had to eat cake and cookies and ice cream every single day. But it was terrifying. I cried when I was told that I had to do that. I mean, all my life I've been told not to eat these things. Now I was being told if I didn't eat these things every single day, I was going to be kicked out of the program. And so I was terrified. And then the minute I started, I kind of went, oh, this is no bad. And I learned that you don't have to be afraid of food. Healthy eating is you're not afraid of food. You know that eating a certain food isn't going to change your life in either way. There's no superfood that's going to make you super healthy, and there's no food that's going to make you sick or make you diabetic or make you overweight. You have to. It's more about listening to your body. But again, that's the self-esteem part. Self-esteem, we talk about it all the time, but I still think it's really underrated. Self-worth. The minute that you start undervaluing yourself, I undervalued myself starting from when I was 17. Before that, I thought I was awesome. Before that, I thought I could take over the world, and I planned to. I had a million dreams and aspirations and goals, and I thought I was going to hit everyone. The minute I lost my self-esteem, I didn't think I was worthy of any of it, and that kept me down. So going back to one of your original questions, which was why I wrote the book, I think that for me, I was so afraid of people judging me for the mistakes that I had made, and I was so afraid of how it would affect me personally, professionally, that I kept my secrets to myself, and it was killing me. And I realized that I was the one that was keeping myself from being happy. I was the one that was judging myself. And so I decided that I wasn't going to do that anymore. And I felt that I would take control and I would release and expose, no pun intended, my secrets. And what I found was it was incredibly liberating, because once I let those secrets out, I didn't have to worry about somebody coming to me with it. Once my kids knew all my dirty little secrets, I didn't have to worry about them finding out about it from someone else. And so once you put yourself out there, it's terrifying at first, but it's unbelievably liberating. And that's one thing I think is really important for people to know, that it's really scary, but the fear is worse than anything else, because what happened from there has been amazing. And so now I don't have fear over that. So now that I started showing who I am and telling the truth, I don't stop. Like, I truly don't worry about what people think or if they're going to judge me. I have no fear. I'll be 51 next month. And it took a lot of years for me to become this. And if people aren't comfortable with it or don't like it, they don't need to be. I'm not living my life for someone else, right? I'm living it so that when I get to the end of it, I'm happy with who I am, and I'm happy with how I've lived my life. That's my only concern.
What does the future hold? What would you like to
Who
see
knows?
yourself?
I don't know. I stopped trying to figure it out a long time ago. Anytime I thought I'd try to make plans, life was like, So now I just go with it. Seriously. I don't know. I take it, especially now with everything so up in the air, I take it day by day. I'm open to things, and I think that's what's really important. I'm not somebody who's stuck in a place, in an anything. I'm open. I'm not afraid of change. I like change. I'm excited by change. I see change as possibility. And I know that there are a lot of people who are afraid of the unknown because it could be scary, but for me, it could be amazing. And if it is scary, I can handle it because I've been through scary before. So I find that I go into everything with a let's see. And if life takes me here, then okay, we're here. And if life takes me here, then okay, we're here. But I have no clue. We'll see.
With all your life lessons and everything that you've experienced, have you considered perhaps doing some coaching? Is that something?
I do. I do. I mean, I've done that with the body image for years, where I have people who call me and set up appointments, and we talk about body image and self-esteem. And I think it's since releasing the book, I've had people contact me for the same thing, just around shame and secrets and needing help with coming to terms with things that they've done in the past, coming to terms with maybe eventually being able to share their secrets with people, getting rid of shame, because that's a big thing. And I dedicate my book is dedicated to anyone struggling to forgive themselves for the mistakes they made when they were just trying to survive. And a lot of us have made mistakes, and a lot of us judge ourselves too harshly on it. So I do help people get through that shame so that they can put it behind them and then start living the lives that they deserve.
And to all the producers and filmmakers out there, the idea of making this into a movie or miniseries, I think it would really attract a lot of attention. Have you considered that at all?
I've heard some things, but it's you got to put up the energy. Who knows, right? What I just said. You never know. Who knows? We'll see.
Well, I do hope that happens.
Thanks. We'll see.
Marci, first of all, I want to thank you so much for being our guest. Tell
Thank you
people
for
why
having me.
they should buy your book and where they can buy it.
Why they should buy it? Well, we'll take things from what people have told me. So as you said at the beginning, I've heard from people who said that even as avid readers, they haven't been able to get into a book, and they read mine pretty quickly. I write like I speak. It's pretty easy to read. I don't hold back. It's raw and it's gritty. But I found that what people said to me was there was enough in there that they couldn't relate to, but that was interesting and exciting for them. And then there was also something in there for everybody that they can relate to. So I think that makes it an interesting read. But at the same time, I do think that there are messages in there that everybody can learn from. If anything, it'll make people feel heard, understood, and less alone. And they can get it you can get it in chapters, you can get it at Barnes & Noble, but Amazon is probably the easiest. And it's you can get a hard copy or an ebook.
Oh, wonderful. Good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Please stick around. We're going to have a little after party. Thank you so much once again. And everyone out there, thank you so much for listening in. We so appreciate it. And we'll be back next Friday with a surprise guest. So tune in. Ooh, should be there.